Have you ever noticed how some days, even the smallest things can feel overwhelming? Maybe the phone rings one too many times, or the traffic light turns red just when you're in a hurry, and suddenly your whole body tenses up. Trust me, I've been there too. And I know how exhausting it can feel, especially as we get older, to carry around that kind of stress day after day. But here's the good news. Stress doesn't have to control your day. There are simple, natural techniques you can weave into your routine that can make a world of difference. I'm talking about small daily habits that help you build resilience and keep your mind and body at peace. And today, I want to share with you exactly what's worked for me, and for many others, when it comes to managing stress naturally. Now, before we dive into the first technique, let's talk a little about what's happening inside our bodies when we feel stressed. You see, stress triggers the release of hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And while those hormones are helpful in short bursts, like if you're facing real danger, long-term stress keeps them elevated, and that can wear down your immune system, disturb your sleep, and even affect your memory. Studies from Harvard Medical School have shown that chronic stress can actually shrink areas of the brain involved in memory and emotional regulation. That's pretty powerful, right? But here's where it gets exciting. Just like stress can shape our brains in negative ways, calming practices can rewire them for peace and resilience. So what will we be covering in this video series? I'll walk you through the natural techniques I personally use every day, from mindful breathing to calming foods to simple mindset shifts that help me stay centered no matter what life throws my way. And even better, many of these are backed by solid science and real-life success stories. So if you've ever felt like stress is stealing your energy, your focus, or your joy, stick with me. Because by the end, you'll have practical tools you can start using right away. Before we keep going, I'd love your help with something. If you're enjoying this video so far, comment Y below. If not, comment N. It helps me know what's working and what to improve. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't yet. Now let's dive deeper. So let's start with one of the simplest yet most powerful stress busters I know, mindful breathing. Now I know that might sound almost too simple, but hear me out. When we're stressed, our breathing becomes shallow and fast, which actually tells our nervous system to stay on high alert. But when we consciously slow down our breath, especially by making our exhale longer than our inhale, we send a signal to the brain that says, hey, it's safe to relax now. There's a beautiful study from Stanford University that shows just 1 minute of slow, deep breathing can reduce levels of cortisol, that main stress hormone. And I can tell you from my own experience, this works wonders. For instance, I have a little ritual every morning. Before I even check my phone or turn on the news, I take 2 minutes to sit quietly and breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, and then exhale slowly for a count of 6. I call it my reset button, and it helps me start my day from a place of calm rather than chaos. And you don't have to carve out special time to do this either. I know someone, a dear friend in her 60s, who started practicing this kind of breathing every time she was stuck in traffic. At first, she thought it wouldn't make much of a difference. But after a few weeks, she noticed she wasn't arriving at her destination feeling drained and irritable anymore. Instead, she felt centered, even energized. That's the power of working with your body's natural calming systems instead of against them. Another thing I found incredibly helpful is creating a stress-free zone in my home. Now, this doesn't have to be fancy. A cozy chair by the window, a corner with a soft blanket and a candle, or even just a quiet spot on your porch. The idea is to have a dedicated space where you only go to relax, breathe, and let go. Neuroscientists say that our brains love associations, so when you consistently use the same space for calming down, your brain starts to recognize it as a safe, peaceful haven. Over time, just sitting in that space can start to trigger relaxation automatically. I actually started doing this after reading about a study from the University of Pennsylvania, where they found that creating consistent calming rituals can reduce symptoms of anxiety and even improve sleep quality in older adults. And let me tell you, when you make even a small part of your home a sanctuary, it makes a huge difference. So those are just the first steps. Using your breath as a tool to calm your nervous system and creating a physical space that signals your brain it's time to relax. And believe me, even if you start with just these two, you'll begin to feel a shift. But we're just getting started. In the next part, I'll share a few more daily practices that are equally simple but can dramatically reduce stress, from the foods you eat to small changes in how you move your body. Some of these might even surprise you. So stick around, because it's only going to get more practical and more empowering from here. Before we begin, I want to make one thing clear. This video is for informational purposes only and is based on publicly available research. Everyone's health is different, so always consult your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your lifestyle, diet, or exercise routine. Scientific knowledge is always evolving, and what works for one person may not work for another. Now let's keep going, because this next part is where things get even more interesting. I mentioned earlier that the foods you eat can actually help manage stress, and I know that might sound a little surprising at first. But there's growing research showing that our gut health is deeply connected to our mood and stress levels. In fact, scientists call the gut the second brain because it produces many of the same neurotransmitters, like serotonin, that help regulate mood. One study from UCLA found that people who ate probiotic-rich foods like yogurt daily actually showed reduced activity in the brain regions linked to stress and emotion. Isn't that fascinating? So one simple change I made in my own routine was adding a serving of fermented foods, like plain yogurt, kefir, or even sauerkraut, a few times a week. And I noticed that over time, not only did my digestion improve, but I felt more emotionally balanced too. It wasn't an overnight miracle, but more like a steady, gentle shift toward calm. And while we're on the subject of food, let's talk about magnesium. It's sometimes called the relaxation mineral, and for good reason. Magnesium helps regulate the nervous system and can actually block the stress hormone cortisol from being released in excess. When I first learned this, I started including more magnesium-rich foods like spinach, almonds, and even a little dark chocolate into my daily diet. And I have to tell you, knowing that I'm nourishing my body in a way that also supports my peace of mind makes every bite feel like self-care. I even remember a friend of mine, Carol, who's in her early 70s. She struggled for years with feeling tense and anxious, especially in the evenings. Her doctor recommended trying a magnesium supplement, and within a few weeks, she told me she felt like a new person, calmer, more centered, and finally sleeping through the night again. Of course, everyone's different, but stories like that remind me how powerful these small, natural shifts can be. Now, beyond food, movement plays a huge role in how we handle stress. And no, I'm not talking about running marathons or doing intense workouts, unless that's your thing. I'm talking about gentle, intentional movement that helps release the physical tension that builds up when we're stressed. For me, that's a simple 10-minute stretching routine I do every afternoon. I call it my stress shake-off. I put on some soft music, reach my arms up to the sky, do some gentle twists, and roll my shoulders. It's nothing fancy, but it works. And there's real science behind this too. A study from Harvard found that even light physical activity can reduce symptoms of anxiety and improve resilience to stress by boosting levels of brain chemicals like endorphins and GABA, which help calm the mind. I also love sharing the story of my neighbor Joe. He's 68 and started practicing Tai Chi a couple of years ago after feeling overwhelmed by work stress. He told me that the slow, flowing movements not only helped with his joint pain, but gave him a mental calm he hadn't felt in years. Now he practices every morning, rain or shine, and he swears it's the best thing he's ever done for his well-being. And honestly, seeing the lightness in his step, I believe him. Another technique I rely on daily is limiting my exposure to what I call stress triggers, those things that spike my anxiety without adding any real value. For me, that meant cutting back on the constant news alerts on my phone. I used to check headlines multiple times a day, and each time, I could feel my shoulders tighten and my heart rate go up. So now I've set boundaries. I check the news once in the morning and once in the evening, and that's it. This small change has been huge. There's actually research from the American Psychological Association showing that constant exposure to negative news can elevate stress hormones and even impair immune function. So by limiting that input, I've created more space for peace and positive energy in my day. And here's something else I've found helpful, practicing what I call micro moments of gratitude. You've probably heard about the benefits of gratitude, but you don't have to write a long journal entry every night. I simply pause a few times a day, maybe when I'm sipping my morning tea or watching the sunset, and silently name one thing I'm grateful for. Sometimes it's as small as the warm cup in my hands or the smile from a passerby. But these little pauses create a powerful shift in mindset. Studies have shown that regular gratitude practice can lower stress and even improve heart health. And I've seen this firsthand. My sister started doing this after a tough year of caregiving for her husband. She began jotting down just 3 things she was thankful for every evening, and over time, she said it transformed her from feeling constantly drained to feeling uplifted, even on hard days. So, to recap what we've added today: supporting your gut health, nourishing with calming minerals like magnesium, embracing gentle movement, setting boundaries with stress triggers, and sprinkling gratitude throughout your day. Each one may seem small on its own, but together, they create a strong foundation for natural stress resilience. But don't go anywhere yet, because in the next part, I'm going to share some of the deeper mindset shifts that really changed the game for me. We'll talk about overcoming those stubborn mental patterns that keep us stuck in stress, and how to build emotional resilience as we age. Some of these might surprise you, and they're incredibly empowering. So stick around, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's go even deeper, because while breathing, nourishing foods, and movement are powerful, the real transformation happens when we start shifting what's going on up here, in our mindset. And believe me, this was the hardest part for me at first, but also the most rewarding. You see, stress isn't just about what's happening around us. It's also about how we interpret and react to those things. I used to be someone who would immediately jump to worst-case scenarios. A small ache must be something serious. A delayed phone call must mean bad news. And that constant what-if thinking kept my nervous system on high alert. But I learned, and science backs this up, that we can actually train our brains to respond differently. There's a field of study called neuroplasticity, which simply means our brains can change and form new pathways throughout life. Yes, even in our 60s, 70s, and beyond. One powerful tool I started using is called cognitive reframing. It's just a fancy way of saying, take a stressful thought and gently flip it to see it from a calmer, more empowering angle. For example, instead of thinking, I can't handle this, I practice saying, this is challenging, but I can take it one step at a time. It sounds simple, but every time you do this, you're strengthening the parts of your brain that handle stress with grace. A study from the University of California showed that people who practiced reframing techniques for just a few weeks had lower cortisol levels and reported feeling more in control. I remember my friend Linda, who's 66 now. She struggled with stress after retiring. She worried constantly about finances, her health, the future. She started keeping a little notepad where she'd write down stressful thoughts and then practice reframing them. Over time, she told me she felt lighter, less anxious, and more focused on what she could control instead of what she couldn't. And honestly, seeing her transform from stressed and stuck to calm and confident was so inspiring. Another deep shift that helped me is embracing the idea of letting go. Now, I know that phrase gets thrown around a lot, but when I really started practicing it, it changed everything. For me, letting go means recognizing when I'm holding on too tightly to things I can't change, like other people's opinions, the past, or even my own mistakes, and choosing to release that grip. It's not always easy. I've had moments where I caught myself stewing over something someone said days ago, and I had to take a deep breath and say out loud, I choose peace over this. That simple phrase became my anchor. And every time I let go, I could feel the tension melting away, my shoulders relaxing, my heart rate slowing. There's research from the Mayo Clinic that shows letting go of grudges and practicing forgiveness can lower stress, improve relationships, and even benefit physical health. Powerful stuff, right? And let's not forget about connection. As we get older, it can be easy to retreat into our own worlds, especially when we're feeling stressed. But staying connected, whether it's with friends, family, or even a supportive online community, is one of the best buffers against stress. There's solid evidence showing that social support reduces cortisol levels and boosts resilience. I make it a point now to reach out to someone I care about at least once a day, even if it's just a quick call or a message to say, thinking of you. And you know what? It lifts both of us up. I have a cousin who started a weekly coffee chat with her neighbors in her apartment building. Nothing fancy, just a time to laugh, share stories, and feel less alone. And she swears it's been her lifeline during tough times. One last practice I want to share in this section is what I call compassionate self-talk. This one was a game changer for me, especially during moments when I felt like I was failing or not handling stress well enough. Instead of criticizing myself, I started speaking to myself the way I would to a dear friend, with kindness, patience, and encouragement. So instead of saying, "Why can't you just calm down?" I would say, "It's okay to feel this way. You're doing your best, and this moment will pass." Research from Stanford has shown that self-compassion reduces anxiety and stress, and even promotes healthier behaviors. And from personal experience, I can tell you, it softens the edges of stress and makes you feel more supported from within. I still remember a time last year when everything seemed to hit at once: family issues, health concerns, and work deadlines. I could feel that old stress spiral starting. But instead of pushing through and criticizing myself for struggling, I paused, took a deep breath, and spoke to myself gently. "This is hard, but you've handled hard things before. Let's take this one small step at a time." And just like that, the pressure eased enough for me to find my footing again. So whether it's reframing your thoughts, letting go of what doesn't serve you, staying connected, or speaking to yourself with kindness, these deeper mindset shifts are where real resilience is built. And the best part, these are skills you can strengthen every single day, no matter your age. But we're not done yet. In the final part coming up, I'm going to tie everything together and share some small, actionable steps you can start right now, today, to build your own daily stress relief routine. Plus, I'll leave you with one last powerful insight from science that will remind you just how much power you have to shape your well-being. So stick with me, we're about to bring it all home. Well, here we are, at the final part of this journey together. If you've made it this far, I want to give you a huge virtual high five, because that shows you're serious about taking control of your stress and creating more peace and resilience in your life. And honestly, that's the first big win. So, let's take a quick moment to recap what we've covered so far. We've talked about how stress affects your body and mind, and I shared the simple but powerful tools that I use daily to manage stress naturally: mindful breathing, nourishing foods, gentle movement, and creating a stress-free zone in your home. We also dove into mindset shifts like cognitive reframing, letting go, and practicing self-compassion, because as we've learned, your thoughts and emotional habits can play a huge role in how you handle stress. But most importantly, I hope you're walking away with the sense that managing stress doesn't require a complete overhaul of your life. It's about the little things, small, intentional changes that build up over time. And the best part, you can start applying them right now, no matter where you are or how much time you have. Now, here's the thing. Stress isn't something that magically disappears. Life will always have its challenges. But with the techniques we've talked about, you'll have the tools you need to face those challenges with a greater sense of calm, control, and confidence. It's about resilience, not perfection. If you take just one thing away from this video, I want it to be this: you have the power to create more peace in your life, no matter what's going on around you. And that's incredibly empowering. Here are a few actionable steps to take right now. 1. Start with your breath. Set a timer for just 2 minutes tomorrow and practice deep breathing. Inhale for a count of 4, hold for 4, and exhale for 6. It may feel simple, but it works wonders. I promise. 2. Nourish your body. Try adding 1 magnesium-rich food to your meals this week. It could be a handful of almonds or a cup of leafy greens. Your body and mind will thank you. 3. Create your stress-free zone. Find one small spot in your home where you can retreat for a few minutes each day. Make it a place that feels soothing, whether it's a chair, a corner with plants, or even just a quiet spot by the window. 4. Reframe your thoughts. The next time you find yourself spiraling into stress, take a moment to challenge your thoughts. Instead of "I can't handle this," try "This is tough, but I can take it one step at a time." See how it shifts your perspective. 5. Connect with others. Reach out to someone you care about today, whether it's a friend, family member, or neighbor. Even a quick text can help you feel more supported and connected. Finally, here's one last scientific insight I want to leave you with. A study from the University of California found that people who regularly practiced stress management techniques had not only lower stress levels, but also improved immune function and even extended lifespans. That means these small practices you're adding to your daily routine aren't just about feeling better in the moment. They're about investing in your health, your future, and your well-being. I truly believe that managing stress is one of the most powerful things you can do for your mind and body, especially as we age. And with these tools, you're giving yourself the gift of peace, resilience, and a more fulfilling life. Before we wrap up, I'd really love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions for future topics or questions you want answered, write to us in the comments below. We're here to help, and your input could inspire our next video. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on more practical tips for healthy aging. Here's to living your best life at any age.